we're gonna jump into a new series today. It's called Back in Black, and I love this series because we're gonna deal with some colors, and colors mean stuff, don't they? Like here's the easiest way I can prove that colors mean things. Right? Done. I mean, like right there, I pretty much just caught everybody in the room because one of these colors means something to you, all right? Either, you love teal because you either went to Coastal, you're attending Coastal, or because you live in this area and you're like, yep, I want to cheer them on. And then there's this one. Yep. So I love the color orange, always have. I've always told you all that. And I know for a lot of you all, like you're like this and you're like, Josh, why couldn't you get a little purple up there too, right? Because that's how you Clemson people are. And then we got this old garnet color over here. And it's funny how divided, like if you live in the area, most people are like, oh yeah. But then these two, it's like, why didn't you put Coastal in between us? Because we don't like being that close to one another, right? Like those of you who are more on the orange side, you're like loving life. Those of you on the garnet side, I know this, it happens. You're like, don't ever put me next to orange. And I know that because our student ministry, they made some t-shirts for our students. And we had several of our volunteers going, I ain't wearing that thing. That thing's orange. You gonna put me in an orange shirt? Don't you know who I am? You know what I mean? So I know that this color thing is a big deal in your life, all right? But here's another way to illustrate it, and this one will affect everybody in the room who's going to get in the car when you leave, all right? And what I mean by that is you understand these colors, right? And if you don't, give the keys to somebody else. Right? Because if you drive, you know that green means go, that yellow means slow or speed up. Depending on who you might be. And then obviously red means stop, all right? But let's move on a little bit further with colors, all right? We could go into this, all right? This is just simply red and black. Red and black. And these two colors go together in the financial world. Like if you're dealing with finances, then you kind of know what these two colors mean. Or maybe you've lived them out, meaning this, that red is dead. Red is bad. Like if you've got a bank account and it's in the red, you're like, yeah, this is not good, right? Some of you been there, all right? We've been there. We understand that, all right? That red in the financial world means that I've overdrawn my account. I've got no money. There's stuff like that. Black is good. Black is there's money in the account, all right? It's in a good standing. The problem is that I know many of us, we live way too close to the red or in the red too often. And my guess is everybody in the room, everybody watching online, everyone at one of our campuses, we all want to be in the black. When it comes to finances, that's where we want to be. And I know this affects everybody. If you're in middle school right now, you're like, oh yeah, I'd love to have some cash. I'd love to be in the black because I ain't got none, right? If you're in college, like life is lived over here. I'm sorry, if you're a parent of a college student, life is lived over here, right? You know what I'm saying? And you want to be in the black. If you're out in the world and you're working a job and you got a checking account, maybe a retirement account, anything like that, you want it to be in the black, all right? So we're going to spend some time over the next couple weeks and we're going to talk about how can we be in the black. And I love it when we get to do some financial series at our church because this is the one thing I know. It affects every one of us. This is a topic that every one of us can benefit from. It doesn't matter if you're young or if you're older. It doesn't matter if you are a student or if you are working a job. It doesn't matter where you're at spiritually. Doesn't matter, like you might say, yeah, I believe in God and I want to use my finances to the best of my ability. Or you might be here and go, I have no faith in God. I'm just here today checking it out because my friend's been telling me I got to go to church with them. Or maybe you're here and you're really kind of starting to investigate who Jesus is. And you're just like, I just kind of want to know a little bit more about him. And man, I'm so glad you're here. And I know that today's topic affects you because it affects each and every one of us. Because we live in a world where for us to get food, for us to get shelter, for us to put gas in the car, for us to buy clothes, it requires currency. So this is something that I know affects each and every one of us. So I really believe it's a great time for us just to talk about it and to go, how do we live? How do we get wisdom so that we can be in the black and not in the red? And I know personally, if I could sit next to somebody who I knew was a financial wizard, if I could sit next to somebody and I knew that they had great concepts and great application of finances in their life, then I would want to glean something from them, right? Like, and this goes in all areas of life. You sit down next to somebody who knows a whole lot about, a certain sport, or you sit down next to somebody who knows a whole lot about a certain job or finances, we often go, well, I want to pick their brain. Well, what we get to do over the next couple weeks is we get to pick the brain of the wealthiest man to have ever lived. And his name is Solomon. All right, and we have his teachings. We have what he wrote, what he talked about when it comes to money. We have it preserved in the Bible. And what I love about this guy named Solomon is he was a king, and the Bible says that he was the wealthiest king to have ever lived. That during his days, that there was so much gold that silver had no value. All right, now, if you understand that, that means he had a lot of gold. It says just 2 verses later in the Bible that he was the wealthiest king to have ever lived. And if you were to take his wealth and bring it into today's world with inflation and all that, he would still be the wealthiest person to have ever lived. But he's also known as the wisest person to have ever lived. So what we can do is we can read his notes and we can say, all right, Solomon, we want to learn from you because it's obvious you knew how to make money and you knew how to be wise with your money and in life. So let's glean from him, all right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the book that he wrote. He actually wrote 3 of them that are in the Bible, but this one is called the Book of Proverbs. And each week, for the next 3 weeks, we're just gonna pick apart some of these proverbs. And what you have to understand about these proverbs is they're just like little nuggets, all right? Like some books of the Bible you read and there's a lot of story and there's a lot of continuation of thoughts. With the book of Proverbs, he's just like spitting nuggets, all right? It's just one of those books that if you ever just wanna read something real quick, you can look at any chapter in Proverbs and he's just gonna throw out just a quick fact or a quick thought. But it's all for the same benefit. And that's what he says in verse 1 of his book. He says this: these are the Proverbs of Solomon, David's son, king of Israel. Their purpose is to teach people wisdom and discipline to help them understand the insights of the wise. Their purpose is to teach people to live disciplined and successful lives. I want you to see that for a second. Because my guess is if you're anything like me, this is something that you want in your life. That I know I need discipline in my life. And I know I want to be successful in my life. I want to be successful when it comes to parenting. I want to be successful when it comes to my job. I want to be successful when it comes to my relationship with God and my faith. I want to be successful when it comes to my finances. So Solomon is saying, I'm writing this so that you can live disciplined and successful lives. Let me keep reading. To help them do what is right, just, and fair. These proverbs will give insight to the simple, knowledge and discernment to the young. Let the wise listen to these proverbs and become even wiser. So he's saying right here is no matter who you are, if you think of yourself as just a simple man, these proverbs are for you. If you think of yourself as young, and you can decide if that's you or not. But I know a lot of you all are young in here. These proverbs are for you. Or if you think of yourself as wise, then these proverbs are for you. So what does he have to say? When it comes to finances, let's just throw out some very practical, simple things that Solomon says about finances. One thing that he says is if you want to get your finances right, then you simply got to work hard. That you've got to be willing to work hard in life. And guys, this is a big characteristic, okay? This is something personally I have prayed over my children since the day they were born. I have prayed that they would be kingdom-minded, godly individuals, that they would want a relationship with God and would live on mission for him. And then I've also prayed that they'd be a hard worker. Because I really believe if you will work hard in life, and whether that's at your job, at your education, at your hobby, whatever it is, if you'll work hard at that, then you can be successful. So I prayed that for my kids. I've prayed that for the spouses of my kids if they choose to get married later in life, all right? I've always prayed that prayer for them. And that's what Solomon says. Solomon says, if you'll be a hard worker, great things can happen. And one of those areas that he says to work hard is at your job. And now I know a bunch of y'all in this room work hard at your job. You do. I've seen it. I've seen some of you who work in the concrete business. That's hard work. I've seen some of you guys work on roofs and be out there in the middle of the sun. That's hard work. I've seen a lot of you I know in here work in the education world. All right? That's hard work. And if you don't believe it, just go help a teacher manage a classroom for 6 hours, okay? That's hard work, all right? So I know that this concept makes sense, that we gotta work hard. But let's dig into it just a little bit further. Let's look and see what he said. He says this at first: lazy people are soon poor, but hard workers get rich. A wise youth harvests in the summer, but one who sleeps during the harvest is a disgrace. All right? Just think about that. Where we live, that's an easy one to think about. How many of you all have ever had to work at a harvest? Whether that was tobacco, baling hay, whatever. Raise your hand, all right? So you all get right there how hard that work is, all right? Myself, never done it. Grew up in the city, not a whole lot of tobacco being harvested there. You know what I mean? Baled hay one time. Said, yep, that's enough for me. All right, you know what I mean? But that work in that field and doing that harvest, that's hard work. And I love talking to people who grew up and did that harvesting of tobacco. And they tell me how hard they had to work. And I always laugh about it because the stories they start sharing with me is like, man, we had to get out there at the crack of dawn. We're working hard. I'm trying to keep pace. But the glory days was when Dad would show up and he'd bring peanuts and Pepsi. And I'd be like, peanuts and Pepsi? How many of y'all have ever put peanuts in your Pepsi? That's so weird. I mean, honestly, I'm like, where does that come from? Had a guy from the first hour, he came up to me, he said, Josh, here's what it was. My grandma, we'd be out there picking beans. She'd say, put your peanuts in your Pepsi because you can drink with one hand and work with the other. I was like, all right, I get it. You have your drink and your snack at the same time. All right, but however it is, you understand that I've got to work hard at the harvest. Let's keep reading what Solomon says. He says, take a lesson from ants, you lazy bones. Solomon said that, not me. Just want to make sure. Point the blame in the right place. Take a lesson from the ants, you lazy bones. Learn from their ways and become wise. Though they have no prince or governor or ruler to make them work, they labor hard all summer, gathering food for the winter. That even the ants know that winter is coming. And because of that, they work hard all summer to prepare for it. He continues on, he says, but you lazy bones, how long will you sleep? When will you wake up? A little extra sleep, a little more slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest. Then poverty will pounce on you like a bandit. Scarcity will attack you like armed robbers. That if you don't work hard, then poverty is coming. One other verse from Solomon about this. A hard worker has plenty of food, but a person who chases fantasies ends up in poverty. So what all is Solomon saying there about this idea of working hard at your job? I'd kind of boil it down to two different things, all right? One is we can't be idle. That we can't just be idle. We can't have that concept of, well, if I just sit around, it'll all get taken care of and I'll be fine. In the New Testament, it says this: if you're not willing to work, then you shouldn't eat. All right? I mean, God takes this serious about don't be idle with your hands, but actually dive in and be a part of it and work hard. But that's the other thing I think Solomon brings out as well, is when we're working hard, we have to understand it's hard work. See, I think sometimes we work hard, but we chase fantasies, as he kind of says. And I think in our day today, the way that might look is we're like, well, I'm going to jump into this get-rich-quick scheme, right? And you think, oh, this is all I got to do. I can do this and this and this, and I'm going to make all kinds of money. And next thing you know, that didn't pan out, and you've lost money. Or we think about this concept of, man, I'm just going to win the Powerball, all right? And, you know, I get it, man. When that Powerball's way up there and you're like, I'm going to go throw $1 on it and see what happens, great. But if you live your life thinking, man, I just got to keep playing the lottery. I just got to keep playing the lottery. One day it's going to pay out, all right? No, that's chasing a fantasy. Or I think another way it happens in our world today, and this is big, especially for those of you of this generation, all right? And, you know, that language, what we mean by church there is those of you who are teenagers, maybe college students, young adults, that sometimes we'll get, I don't want to use the word tricked, but that's probably the best word I could use, to thinking that it's going to happen overnight. That whatever it is that I'm trying to accomplish is going to come quickly. And that's really because of the current situation, environment, culture that we find ourselves living in. All right? An author and speaker, Simon Sinek, he said this in his book as well, that because of the culture that we live in, we think that everything happens instantaneously. We think everything happens immediately because that's where we live. Like, think about TV for a second. Any of y'all remember growing up in the days that you had 3 channels and the TV shut off at midnight? Yeah, okay. So we all just said that we're old. But thanks for joining me, because I remember those days. I remember the day that we got a remote control for the TV. It was connected to a cord, right? You know what I mean? It's like, that ain't a remote, you know what I mean? But hey, I didn't have to get up to turn that channel. All 3 of them. All right, here we go, you know? But today we got you know, hundreds of channels at our fingertips. We got Netflix, you got Hulu, you got Amazon Prime, you got all these channels we can easily choose from. Think about it when it comes to food. You know, there was a day when fast food didn't exist. That meals were spent, you'd sit around the table at home, and that's where you'd eat them. I remember, this is a true story, that my grandpa, when he got out of the Army, he was a cook. He went back to Indianapolis. Some guys in Indianapolis approached him and said, we want you to start a franchise for the entire city of Indianapolis. And he's like, all right, what is it? He goes, well, we got this concept. It's called fast food, that you actually come up to the counter, you'd order what you want, you put it in a bag, and then you can eat it there or you can take it and leave. He said, that will never work. And he said no to owning all the McDonald's that were coming to Indianapolis. Yeah, who do you think's fantasizing right now? Right? He was like, that wouldn't work, but now we live that way, all right? We live off fast food. We live off microwaving things. When it comes to technology, man, everything is at our fingertips. And then all of a sudden, you run out of data and it jumps it down to 3G. You're like, this is ridiculous, right? Because it's not immediately, it's right there, all right? And there's nothing wrong with that. Make sure you hear me on that. I think all those things are great that we have all this available now. But what it does is I think it tricks our mind into thinking that everything we want in life should come very quick and should come very easy. And guys, I have to tell you, when it comes to your career, that's not the way it typically works. When it comes to chasing a dream that you feel like God has put in front of you with maybe a new career or a new job, or maybe you're getting out of college, you're like, this is where I'm headed, this is what I want to do. And the next thing you know, you recognize, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. And we have to understand it takes time. So we got to work hard and keep working hard and see what God might do. All right, so that's just a little thing from Solomon. But another thing Solomon says is you got to work hard at budgeting. And you might go, okay, where's this going? Think about it this way. If you'll work hard at your job, all right, in America, the way this works, if you work hard at your job, you get a paycheck. I don't know if you realize this, but the average American will make between $3 million and $12 or $14 million in their lifetime. Now, if I came to any of you and said, hey, can I give you $3 million? You'd be like, yes. But that's at the minimum what most people will make in their lifetime. And you might go, I ain't making that. If you were to go back every year and look at it, what would it actually come out to be? See, we work hard at making money, but we work way too easy at spending money, right? And what budgeting does is it makes it hard for you to spend it as well. And this is what I'd say. If you're gonna work hard to get money, then what you should also do is make sure you put some systems in your life where it's easier to build it up and harder to send it out. That you start looking at your money going, I want my money to do what I want it to do, all right? And that's what Solomon said as well. He said this, good planning and hard work lead to prosperity, but hasty shortcuts lead to poverty. Good planning, in today's world, we call that budgeting. When I budget and I work hard at it, it can lead to prosperity. But hasty shortcuts lead to poverty. A simple tool I want to give you right now is a website called everydollar.com. All right, and I don't know if you've ever been to everydollar.com, but it's a resource from Dave Ramsey, who's an expert when it comes to finances. And what everydollar.com does is it helps you budget. And guys, I know this is something that we use in our family, and it's been phenomenal to help us realize this is where we want our money to go. All right, so whether you listen to the rest of the service or not, doesn't matter to me. If you're playing and looking at this everydollar.com, I know that's a great next step for you. And this is what it looks like. You pull it up on your phone, it's gonna look like that. You pull it up on a computer, it's gonna look something like this. And what I love about everydollar.com is you just insert your money, whatever your weekly pay, monthly pay is, however that works for you. And then what I love is the very first thing it says is, how much are you gonna give away? That to set up your budget, the first question it asks is, when it comes to generosity, when it comes to giving back to God, or when it comes to giving to somebody else, how much are you going to do there? And guys, this is what I believe is important, all right? If you call yourself a Christ follower, if you're like, man, I want to pursue God, man, this is your next step in budgeting. That you've got to start by saying, God, I want to return to you what you've given to me. And maybe you're here today and you don't have faith and you're just like, well, that's just not me, all right? Well, I would challenge you, then you need to give some away to somebody just so that you help yourself not be selfish with your funds. But I would also challenge you this way, try giving it to God. Because I'm confident in saying this statement, that if you will test God in this area and you'll say, God, I'm gonna give some of this to you, even if I don't really believe in you yet, you will see him work miracles in your life. I really believe that. So I love everydollar.com because it starts with that. But then the next thing it does is it then says, now put some in an emergency fund. Guys, this is critical because as soon as you start budgeting, guess what's going to happen? You're going to have an emergency. It's going to happen. You're going to start budgeting and next thing you know, something's going to break down on your car. And you're going to be like, I wasn't ready for that. That's why I got to have an emergency plan. Or the next thing that's gonna happen is your child's gonna come home from school saying, hey, I found out we gotta have money for a yearbook, or I gotta have money for this, or whatever it might be. Or you're in college maybe, and you're gonna get an email from the school saying, hey, next year's room deposit is due, all right? So there's gonna be something happen, so make sure you put some money set aside for an emergency plan. And then you fill in all the other lines from fixed expenses to flexible expenses, all right? Just go to the website and it'll walk you through it. But here's the other thing I would say with that is budgeting, coming up with a budget is easy. Sticking to a budget can be very difficult. And it's difficult because we take shortcuts. You get into it and you're like, oh man, this is hard work. I don't know if I want to do this. It'll be okay if I don't budget. I know now how to do it. I'll just spend it appropriately. No, you'll take a shortcut. Keep working hard at it. And the other reason it's difficult is because of this verse. Such is the fate of all who are greedy for money. It robs them of life. What'll end up happening is you'll put together a budget and the next thing you know, you'll be like, man, I just want that. I gotta have that. It's an emergency, I gotta get it. Buying shoes, ladies, is not an emergency. Oh, I know, right? Oh, we've been fine all day. You're like, don't go there. I heard it coming from over here. Don't worry, ladies, I can say it to the men, buying that new gun is not an emergency, all right? Buying your preacher a new driver for his golf game. Now that's an emergency, but no. We get greedy. And then we buy things that aren't in our budget. And when we buy things that aren't in our budget, it robs us of life. You might go, really? How's that? This way. You ever sat around at night stressed out because you didn't know how you're going to pay for something the next day? Because you spent the money the day before. Man, you shouldn't be going to bed stressed out about finances. It robs you of life. Ever gotten in a fight with your spouse over money? That's not how marriage is supposed to work. Marriage is supposed to be incredible, all right? You start fighting over money, it's robbing you of that married life that God is calling you to have. So we got to be careful not to be greedy, because greedy can rob us of life. So Solomon says, man, work hard. And then when you work hard, use your money wisely and plan for it and put it where it needs to go. So work hard at your job, work hard at budgeting. But then he also says this, work hard at honoring God. This is a verse that we're going to dig into in a couple weeks in a lot deeper way, but for now, just let me say it this way. It says this, honor the Lord with your wealth and with the best part of everything you produce. Then he will fill your barns with grain and your vats will overflow with good wine. That first line, honor the Lord with your wealth and the best part of everything you produce. Honor the Lord with everything you have, is what Solomon is saying. And work hard at that. Work hard to honor God with everything. Now, I want you to think about your life right now, because like I said at the beginning, I really believe that there's a ton of hard workers in here. And we work hard at a lot of things. We work hard at our jobs. Some of us work too hard at it, okay? But we will work hard at our jobs. We'll work hard at getting good grades. We'll work hard at getting into that new school. We'll work hard for that new career. We'll work hard at that hobby that we're involved in, or that athletic program that we're a part of. We'll work hard at that. Or maybe as a parent, you'll work really hard to help your son or your daughter at the athletics or the activities that they're involved in. We'll work hard at it. We'll spend time on it. We'll spend all kinds of money on it. We'll do everything we can there. How often do we put that same amount of energy into working hard for our relationship with God? I mean, I know that's pointed, and I know sometimes that might hurt. But truly ask yourself, am I working as hard at honoring God as I am at other things in life? And there's nothing wrong with those other things in life, all right? But then of themselves, nothing wrong with them. But we got to make sure we keep first things first. And we got to honor God with the things that he is asking of us. And we do that because of a response of salvation. See, here's reality. Let's just talk for spirituality for a second. When it comes to our relationship with God, each and every one of us in this room either is or has been in the red. Let me say that again. Each and every one of us in this room, each and every one of us listening right now, we have either been or are currently in the red spiritually. And what that means is that God has a life in store for each and every one of us. That God had a desire for each and every one of us to be in a right relationship with him. But every one of us in this room has sinned. Every one of us has missed the mark, is what we call that. Every one of us has missed the target that God has for us and the life that he's called us to. And when we miss that mark, we get separated from God. And when we get separated from God, we go into the red and we overdraw our spiritual bank account. And we are now in a place that we're separated from God. And I want you to think about that in the banking world. When you fall into the red in the banking world, what happens? There's a consequence. And that consequence is that when you fall into the red, the consequence, what they do is they don't keep you like just in the red and say, okay, just hang out there for a little while. What do? They charge you a fee. They say, because you're in the red, we're going to charge you $25 now. When's the last time a bank called and said, hey, we know that you're in the red and we need to charge you that $25 fee, but we're just going to let that slide? Yeah, it doesn't happen very often. On top of that, go this way. When's the last time a bank said, you know what, we know you're in the red and we're not going to charge you a fee, but in addition to that, what we want to do is we want to add $250 to your account because we want to make sure you have enough money to make it through until you get paid. Yeah, they don't do that. But what did God do when we went in the red? He left the black and he came here. When we went in the red, when we fell, when we got separated, there was a consequence. And that consequence was we got out of a right relationship with God. But so when we went in the red, the way the banker took care of the debt is he said, I'll pay that for you. And God, Jesus Christ, left heaven, came to this earth, and he took on the red is what he did. And he was beaten, he was bruised, he was whipped, he was worn out. Spikes were placed into his wrist and into his feet, and he hung on a cross and he bled red blood so that we could get back in the black. And he died on that cross, and he went to hell on our behalf, and he paid the debt that we couldn't pay so that we could be in the black. And you know how much that cost us? Nothing. It's free. It's a free gift. He says, I've covered it. I'm giving you this free gift that allows you to go from the red to the black. I want you to receive it. You don't have to work for it. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to buy it. It's a free gift from him. But there is a response that cost us. Let me illustrate that by just looking at this verse. It's from the New Testament. It says this: work hard to show the results of your salvation. Now think about that. Work hard to show the results. He didn't say work for your salvation. He said work hard to show the results of your salvation. Obeying God with deep reverence and fear. That because of salvation, we should do work. We should work hard. We should work hard at honoring God with everything in our life. We should work hard at loving him. We should work hard at loving people. We should work hard at serving him. We should work hard at serving people. And we should work hard at giving to him. Part of that honoring God is saying, God, you have blessed me with an income. I want to give this back to you, because I want to honor you with my wealth, with the first fruits, with the best that I can give you. And here's what I found. In 25 plus years of ministry, I've really never found somebody who didn't want to do that. And here's what I mean. Almost every conversation I would have with somebody about giving to God, no one would ever say, well, I just don't want to give him anything. I don't want to give him my money. I don't want to give him my time. I don't want to do that. That's not what I typically would hear. This is what I would typically hear. Man, I would love to serve God, or I'd love to serve people. I would love to live on mission. I would love to give God some of my finances, but I can't. I've put myself in a bad financial situation, and I just can't afford to give to God. I've put myself in a situation in life where I just don't have enough time to give to God. And when you say that, what you don't understand is you're saying you can't, but he says he can. And if we would actually say, God, the desire on my heart to do this, so I'm going to trust you, it is possible. It is possible. Look at the next part of this verse. It said, for God is working in you, giving you the desire and the power to do what pleases him. You might sit there and say, man, I've got myself in such a bad financial situation, I don't think I can. And he says, no, I'm giving you the power to do it. You might say, I don't know if I have enough time in my life to serve him the way that I need to serve him. No, he can give you the power. He puts a desire on your heart. And I know this is true, because I know that there's many of you who have said this, myself as well. We've said things like, man, I just want to use my life for a purpose. That I feel like I want to use my career to honor him. I want to serve, I feel like I need to serve this group or these people because I know that there's just something about doing that. There's a desire that's there, and I think that desire is born from God putting it on your heart to say, listen, you were born for much more than just this. You were born to serve me by serving people. And the same thing's true about finances, that there's a desire on your heart of, man, I'd like to do more with my money. I'd like to use my money to serve God and to give to God. I'd love to use my money to be able to bless people. And I think that desire is straight from God, of him saying, man, I want to use you to do more. The desire's there and the power is there. All we have to do is just start honoring him. Do our best and work hard at it. I'm not saying it's easy, but work hard at it. So that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to move into a time of response. And man, if you're new around here, this is the way this simply works. We're going to sing 2 songs, all right? About 12 minutes. And I invite you to use this time to truly honor God. And that might be by just standing and singing. It might be just standing and thinking about the things you've discovered and allowing the songs to kind of be sung over you to God. Maybe for you, working hard to honor him is maybe you want to take communion this morning. And the way communion works here at The Rock is there's up here on the front of the stage, there's some bread and some juice over there. There's some bread and some juice over here. And you just come up and just serve yourself. Just take a piece of bread, take a cup of juice, and you can either stay right there or maybe slide over towards the prayer corner or towards the baptistry and just spend some time with God and honor him and thank him that he came to this earth and took on red so that we could be in the black. Or maybe what you're going to do during this time is you're going to spend some time honoring him with your giving. And you can come up front and put that in the offering box, or you can pull out your phone and go right online right now. You're like, Lord, I just need to give to you. And you can do that straight from your phone through our app and through our text to give and all that. Or maybe what you need to do right now is you're like, man, I'm recognizing I'm in the red, that I haven't responded to his gift of grace, but I know I need to. So I'm going to invite you, just come to the Connect corner. It's lit up. I'll be standing there. There's people there. We would love to talk with you and to help you take that step. It's a free gift of grace that God offers. But do something in response to it. If you want to talk about that, I'd love to help you do that. So why don't you stand up? I'm going to pray, and then we're going to respond. Jesus, I thank you for this moment. I thank you for every man, for every woman, for every student that is in this room. God, I pray right now that we would simply respond to the things we've discovered. Help us to do everything we can to honor you and to work hard doing it. In your name, amen. Let's spend some time responding.